So CNN host Brian Stelter unironically bemoaned low trust in media. Now, of course, in Brian Stelter's mind, he's the savior riding in on the white horse to fix everything and to let everybody know, I got this, I'm honest, I tell the truth, my network tells the truth. This is the argument that he makes. Now, I want to show you the video, then we're going to come back and I'm going to give you all the unfortunate facts against his terrible case.
Whenever anyone asks me about trust in media, I try to ask, what do they mean by media? Because everyone is a member of the media now. The media includes the New York Times and also a no-name blogger. So let me propose to you a different way to think about trust in media. Reporters versus repeaters. This brand new research by Gallup says American trust in the mass media is at its lowest point since 2016 and near a record low overall. But think about it. Almost everyone trusts some form of media. Everyone trusts something. It's just that many people trust CNN and many others trust Fox, even though we're not really two sides of the same coin. So it's obvious that when pollsters ask about the media as a whole, the results are abysmal. And that is in large part due to Republican sentiment that you see on your screen here. So you see these lines diverge over time. The blue line much, much higher than the red line. Republican trust in mass media is at rock bottom lows. And yet, Fox's ratings are high and Fox's stars are beloved. So there is trust there. But the chasm, the canyon between Democrats and Republicans is critical to understand. Democrats say they generally trust mainline news sources. Republicans say they do not. The space between them is Grand Canyon-sized. And as Matt Gertz of the liberal Media Matters noted, the thing about that partisan skew is that it means that negative press coverage is much more damaging to Democrats, whose voters will believe it, and less damaging to Republicans, whose voters generally won't believe it. It's an interesting point. But the even bigger point, I think, is about what the press is. What's the nutritional value of the content? Is it produced by reporters or by repeaters? So at the risk of repeating myself a little bit, okay? Repeaters are the talk radio shouters who tell listeners to hate the other side. They're on TV and radio telling the same story every day. Repeaters are outlets like One America News, which replays Donald Trump's lies on a loop and runs random news packages made by other companies. Repeaters are all over Facebook in hyper-partisan private groups that cherry-pick stories and confrontational memes and make you really rageful. Repeaters are Twitter trolls who anonymously amplify propaganda and try to wear the rest of us down with their repetition. And so much of what they are repeating, so much of the raw material for radio yackers and Facebook posters and all the rest is from reporters, from the people paid to figure out what is true, not what they might want to be true, but what is true. And here's the important part, okay? There are easy ways to tell the difference between the two, between reporters and repeaters. CNN, for example, has news bureaus all around the world, all over the place, all the red dots. That's a lot of reporting power. Fox, just to show the contrast, has very few bureaus by comparison. They only have reporters in a couple of international locations. So Fox does a lot less reporting and a lot more repeating. But this isn't about ideology or anything. It's about a type of content. Fox and Friends got it all wrong today.
Don't you wish you had a dime for every time somebody said to you, what would happen to America if we didn't have Fox News? I mean, we'd have no alternative information at all. I mean, just think about that.
It's not about alternative information. It's about whether media outlets are spending the money to staff the bureaus and send out troops and sort out fact from fiction. It's about repeating versus reporting.
So he's trying to make a dichotomy there. The reporters are the good people, the amazing people who do their job right, like at CNN. And the repeaters are the charlatans who are just, copying what Trump says and copying talk radio hosts and not breaking any new information or news. That's Fox News. That's One American News Network. That's Newsmax. Now, don't get it twisted. I despise Fox News, One American News Network, Newsmax. That right-wing echo chamber is tremendously harmful to the country. There's no doubt about it. Here's the issue, though. Brian Stelter is acting like CNN is the solution, and the reporting that they do is the solution. Wrong. So I want to show you this article because it's really important in busting up this myth. So this is from Adam Johnson. He did a wonderful job finding all this. CNN won't say if it's running undisclosed PR for a Gulf dictatorship. CNN's Dubai Now section has been publishing as straight news scores of cartoonish puff pieces for the UAE, an absolute dictatorship that imprisons journalists and activists. So, let me explain to everybody. I'm just giving you a tiny sampling of what's in that piece. You should read the entire piece. These are the headlines that CNN ran within just the last year. Inside Dubai's first institutional art collection. The rapid rise of gaming in the Middle East. Deserted Dubai airport terminal comes back to life. Palm Jumeirah, Dubai's iconic man-made islands, turns 20. Expo 2020 in Dubai is building a new city of the future. Dubai Restaurant Week celebrates the city's dining scene. The world's highest infinity pool has opened in Dubai. Art Dubai brings together artists from around the world. Blown away, the UAE's booming kite surfing scene. So, there were 106 articles written on the UAE within just the past year. 105 of them, no disclosure at all. That perhaps CNN is literally being paid by a dictatorship to do propaganda for them. There's one article where they have like one throwaway line that isn't fully transparent, which says something to the effect of like, just so you know, we might have relationships with some of these countries, and that might be why we're running this article. So, no, Brian, no. This idea that, like, there's the reporters and there's the repeaters. Repeaters bad, reporters good. What a ridiculously simplistic idea, which happens to totally exonerate you and all your idiot friends over at CNN. Guys, they got Russiagate wrong. The most cartoonish, over-the-top, ridiculous version of Russiagate, this idea that Donald Trump is Vladimir Putin's puppet and Mueller's going to end up taking Donald Trump out of the White House in handcuffs. They got their audience to believe stuff like that. They ran insane, totally untrue articles. And then when it was corrected, they didn't go out there and correct the record and say we were wrong and retract stuff. No. They doubled down and they tripled down, they quadrupled down, and it all came to naught. They were dead wrong about that. They were dead wrong just recently when Biden fully pulled out of Afghanistan. How many articles did they run? What about the women and what about the girls? Because that's obviously the reason why we're there. It's all about protecting the women and the girls. They lie to you all the time. They mislead you all the time. They do paid propaganda all the time. So they're not some sort of solution. And Brian, you're smart enough to know that. You're smart enough to know that you guys don't do a wonderful job. Again, I have zero love for Newsmax, One American News Network, and Fox News. But what you need to understand is Republicans are actually correct to dislike the media. They're correct to dislike the media. But they're just wrong in thinking that their alternative choices are better. In fact, their alternative choices are arguably even bigger frauds and charlatans and con men. So, I mean, guys, again, I don't know how many times I could bring this fact up. You guys are probably sick and tired of hearing it. I don't care. I'm going to keep repeating it. Every single major media organization lied and led us into the Iraq war. Now, you want to be kind and say maybe they didn't know they were lying. Maybe they were also misled by the government, and so they were repeating falsehoods. I don't begrudge you that narrative. If you want to take that approach instead of saying they lied and assigning malintent to them, totally fine. But either way, they were factually wrong. And the people who were wrong kept getting promoted and promoted and promoted. And everybody who was right was kicked off the air. Okay? Take, again, the financial crisis. CNBC is a great example of this. They were saying right before the crash, they had CEOs on from big banks and financial institutions going, nothing to see here. Everything's wonderful. Keep giving us your money. Everything will work out great. There's going to be no downturn. I don't know what you're talking about. Then there was a giant market crash. Now, all the people who were wrong got promoted. Anybody who was right was not seen on the air again. Tell me how that works. Because the media is effectively an anti-meritocracy. It's not the harder you work, the further you go. The more right you are, the further you go. No. If you toe the establishment line, that's how you get the promotion. And now you can see that very clearly with the paid UAE propaganda. That is clearly toeing the establishment line. Clearly toeing it. And Brian Stelter has nothing to say about it at all. In fact, no, we're the reporters. We're the serious people. It's those right-wing outlets that are the repeaters. Just nonsense. Stop with the self-aggrandizing bullshit. It's like with Jim Acosta, who was getting yelled at by Trump when Trump was president. They were like, "Sir, this is an attack on the First Amendment. The president was mean to me." Meanwhile, they have nothing to say about Julian Assange, who's a real First Amendment hero, who's locked up because he did the job a reporter is supposed to do, which is exposing corrupt people in high places. You're a joke, Brian Stelter, a total joke. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.